Eurovision has been over for a while, and as the dust is settling, people are still asking, why aren't we finding out exactly what countries gave exact votes to each other? That is, how do we not know the exact numbers? Why isn't the EBU releasing them? And it's actually probably not the conspiracy that some of you are making it out to be. What's clear is the EBU has a system, the votes are abiding to that system, and the points are being allocated accordingly. So then why are they not giving us the information? As I said, I don't believe it's actually a conspiracy. There's no conspiracy theory behind this. There's no small group of people going, we're fudging the votes and doing something dodgy. My answer is that it's actually a lot more simple than that. And it's that releasing them will expose the actual problem with the system that the EBU doesn't want to fix. We do have a little bit of info though. ESCExtra reports that the Belgian broadcaster and the Spanish broadcaster has released the amount of votes that they've received. I've taken a look at this, and there is a little bit of confusing language here because often it uses voters and then it uses votes cast. Now we know there's a big difference between the amount of voters versus the amount of votes cast, as we understand that up to 20 votes can be cast per valid payment method or per SMS or whatever it is. So for the purposes of my discussion here, I will be looking at these articles and these findings and drawing some conclusions. But I'm going to be looking at these numbers to mean the amount of votes that we have. The reason is because of this conflicting use of language in this article. We do have this graph here, which does give quite a bit of information about viewers and votes. And it does seem to show that it's really talking about votes cast. What I find really interesting within this analysis here is that both countries had a much larger turnout of online votes than SMS. I actually originally thought that SMS were the main voting mode or medium, but apparently that's not the case. We actually had more votes cast apparently this year in Belgium than we did in Spain, which was quite odd because we know that Spain has something like, 4 times the population that Belgium has. Obviously, that's got nothing to do with viewership, but one would suggest that the more people there are in a country, the more people who will be watching. This article does go on to say, though, that this may have something to do with the amount that the votes cost, which apparently is €1.10 per vote in Spain versus 75 cents in Belgium, which does make a big difference at the end of the day. And whilst these are astronomical numbers, I found this quite interesting because, number one, we have more people voting online than ever before. I mean, it's easier, right? And number two, the votes in Belgium this year, 220,000 in the grand final, seems like a lot of votes. But let's put that into perspective. That's 220,000 votes thereabouts. We know that people can vote up to 20 times per payment method or credit card. So let's pretend that out of that 220,000 votes, that each person who voted 20 times. That makes around 11,000 people who voted. Now, we know that that's not the case. Like, it's obvious. People are voting for several their favorite. They might give 5 votes here, 5 votes there. Some people might only be voting twice. So we know that there wasn't only 11,000 people who voted. Well, we don't know, but it's likely. Don't know what that number is, 20, 30, 40,000, who knows. However, what this system reveals is the following. And don't get me wrong, before I go into this, I'm not specifically referencing any countries. I get that there's been a big problem with the country which took out the most 12-point votes in the world. That's really not what I'm on about here, despite what some of you might think. I'm on about the voting flaws. So these numbers alone actually reveal quite a lot because it only takes a small amount of people to work together to influence a vote. So let's pretend there was 6,000 people. 6,000 people out of those who vote give 20 points each to one act. That gives us 120,000. I don't know, my maths is not good enough. But that's over half. That's over half of the entire votes cast. So let's pretend, as I said, there's 6,000 people. Each person gives 20 votes to one act. That's more than half of the full amount of votes cast, which means that act is going to get 12 points. Now, it's likely that that didn't happen, obviously. I would be so surprised if 6,000 people gave all of their votes to one. But it doesn't need that. Maybe it's 3,000 people with 2 credit cards. Maybe it's only 2,500 people with 2 credit cards. That's more than enough. That's 5,000 people who have voted. So at the end of the day, what this system actually exposes, or what these numbers expose, is that it is very, very easy to work together to influence the votes. Now, what I'm actually saying is not against who gets the most votes, who gets 12 points. Because the EBU is not releasing the exact numbers. Not because it's rigged, not because there's a big conspiracy, because releasing those numbers will expose how easy it is to manipulate the vote. Let's think about my country, Australia, or even Azerbaijan, where there aren't as many people watching, especially given the time that it's on. Voting's open at 5 a.m. on Sunday morning in Australia. And the fact that we don't have a huge population who watches Eurovision, we've got a huge fan base, a fan base which is really, really loud, but a small amount of people. Then Azerbaijan, is this going on at midnight? I know they're a couple of hours in front of the other European countries. So with countries with smaller viewerships, this now becomes a lot more easy. If the EBU or the broadcasters released the exact amount of votes for each country in the top 10 or each in general, we're going to see that all it takes is 100 or 200 votes to pop up into the next category, into 1 point or 2 points. The EBU doesn't want to show this. The EBU doesn't want to show how easy it is for people to be able to work together to vote for their favorites, or for whatever agenda they might have. Because if they release the amount of votes that they've given within Australia, for example, and the country which got 2 points, or let's say 4 points, this year was actually Albania, and I threw all my 20 votes behind Albania. How that made a difference, I don't know. I'm sure there were other people who voted for Albania. We know they got a great audience vote at the end of the day, but they only got 4 points from Australia. How many more votes would I have had to give to pop it up to 5 points? To be honest, I actually don't believe it would have been a lot. I actually think it would have been within 100. Genuinely. And if I had the amount of credit cards and I had the means and the motives and the want, I would do that. I would pop them up to 5 or 6 points. So not releasing the amount of points or votes, not releasing the amount of votes for each act is intentional, because it's going to show the public how broken the system is. It's going to show the public how easy it is to be able to work together to get your country to give 6, 7, 8, 10 points, because it will show how small the amount of votes there actually are in general. It will also show that it's incredibly likely, depending on the political situation, that the country which got 12 points ate up possibly even half of the amount of votes. In the example that I gave, in Belgium, all it would take is 2,500 people with 2 credit cards to cast 5,000 people's worth of votes, which end up equaling 100,000, just under half of the 220. At the end of the day, this is not a conspiracy theory. This is not the EBU is trying to hide and be coy about something because they're being dodgy. No, this is the EBU going, we can't show the public what we know because it'll show how broken our system is. Everything is going according to the system. Everything is working, but it's going to show how broken the system is. So next year, if I save up enough money to post a big advertising campaign in my country to say, join a Discord to show how broken the system is, so that we all throw our votes behind one act in the semis and one act in the finals, which the bookies are not favouring for audience votes. I honestly believe it won't cost that much. And if enough people turn up and go, we want to break the system and show how bad the system is, that we'll be able to push a country up to 8 or 10 points in the grand finals from my country given the circumstance that not many people are voting. And I believe that if there's enough of a movement everywhere else, that will work too. The question is it worth the investment? Let me know your thoughts in the comments on what you think about this. Thank you so much for watching. Probably should get back to analyzing music, hey?